Madam Speaker, I rise in strong support of S. 3946, the Abolish Human Trafficking Reauthorization Act, which reauthorizes crucial programs that help combat human trafficking. Excuse me. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar criminal industry that exists in cities, suburbs, and rural towns and denies freedom to nearly 25 million people around the world. Our inability to see the harms of human trafficking allows it to persist and leaves victims vulnerable, sometimes even as they think they have found those who will help them escape. S. 3946 would reauthorize and extend many critical programs through 2027 that are vital to the fight to end this form of modern-day slavery. The Trafficking Victims Protection Act, or TVPA, is a crucial law that provides a legal framework for the United States to combat, monitor, and prosecute human trafficking crimes, while also providing key services and support to victims of trafficking. S. 3946 would reauthorize key TVPA programs through 2027 that fund restorative services for victims and law enforcement anti-trafficking operations and training. This legislation would also establish confidentiality protections for victims, prioritize cybersecurity enforcement, provide funding to states that identify, respond to, and prevent trafficking within their foster care systems, assist victims who have their documentation stolen, improve data collection, support forced labor investigations, and authorize funding for the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Homeland Security. Lastly, this reauthorization would extend the life of the National Sexual Assault Hotline and provide permanent authorization of the Department of Justice's Domestic Trafficking Victims Fund, which is financed through fines paid by convicted traffickers and sexual predators. Too often we think that human trafficking is something that happens elsewhere, in other cities and in other countries. But human trafficking touches every community, every city, and every suburb. That is why we must continue to do all that we can to raise awareness, provide hope, and provide support to victims and survivors, and to ensure that there is accountability for those who commit this terrible crime. This legislation does just that. This bipartisan legislation is supported by a broad coalition of advocates for victims and survivors of trafficking and sexual abuse, law enforcement, and prosecutors. I thank Senators Cornyn and Klobuchar for introducing this important legislation. I urge all of my colleagues to support it, and I reserve the balance of my time.